In The Young and the Restless, there are moments when joy and destruction are born in the same breath, when one character's long-awaited happiness becomes the catalyst for another's unraveling. This is one of those volatile turning points, where love dares to bloom under the shadow of betrayal, and every fragile victory carries the seed of inevitable conflict. Sally Spectra's decision to finally accept Billy Abbott's proposal should have felt like a triumph, untainted by doubt. For so long, she has been defined by hesitation, by the scars of past mistakes, and the quiet fear that she would once again sabotage her own happiness. Her acceptance is not simply a romantic gesture, it is an act of defiance against her own history. She recognizes, perhaps for the first time with painful clarity, that the greatest obstacle in her path has not been fate or circumstance, but herself. And so, when she says yes, she is not just choosing Billy, she is choosing to believe that she deserves something stable, something real. But stability in Genoa City is always temporary, always fragile. The revelation that Sally is pregnant transforms this engagement from a hopeful beginning into something far more complicated, something that binds her future to a past she cannot fully escape. The weight of that realization lingers beneath the surface of every celebration, turning what should be a moment of pure joy into something edged with uncertainty. Because a child does not simply bring people together, it forces them to confront truths they might otherwise avoid. Billy, driven by a mixture of excitement and determination, embraces this new reality with a kind of urgency that borders on desperation. He sees the pregnancy as proof that this time will be different, that this relationship will not collapse under pressure as others have before. But beneath that optimism lies a deeper fear, one he refuses to acknowledge that he may once again fail, that history may repeat itself despite his best intentions. Jack Abbott's reaction introduces a different kind of tension, one that ripples outward through the Abbott family. His initial shock at Sally's pregnancy and Billy's engagement quickly gives way to a more complicated emotional landscape. On the surface, he offers support, the steady presence of an older brother who wants to believe in Billy's happiness. But internally, Jack is far from settled. His own life is in disarray, his relationship with Diane fractured by unresolved betrayal and lingering resentment. It is within this emotional instability that Jack makes a decision that feels both calculated and dangerously impulsive. His past encounter with Patty Williams resurfaces not as a regret, but as an opportunity. The realization that Patty can be used as a weapon against Victor Newman ignites something darker within him, a willingness to manipulate, to exploit, to step into morally ambiguous territory in pursuit of a larger goal. This is not the Jack who seeks reconciliation or peace. This is a man who feels cornered, who sees no other path forward but through conflict. The plan itself carries an undercurrent of volatility that cannot be ignored. Patty is not a tool that can be easily controlled. She is unpredictable, driven by her own fractured perceptions and emotional instability. To involve her in any scheme is to invite chaos. And yet, Jack proceeds, convinced that the potential reward outweighs the risk. It is a decision born not just of strategy, but of frustration, of a growing impatience with a life that refuses to fall back into place. At the same time, across the divide of Genoa City's power structure, the Newman family faces its own escalating crisis. Phyllis Summers finds herself increasingly isolated, her usual confidence eroded by the mounting pressure of legal scrutiny. The emergence of Christine Blair as a prosecutor shifts the balance of power in a way that Phyllis cannot easily counter. Christine represents not just a legal threat, but a moral one, a figure who embodies the very accountability Phyllis has spent years evading. What makes this situation particularly painful for Phyllis is not the investigation itself, but the perceived betrayal of her son, Daniel. His proximity to Christine and Danny feels like a personal affront, a rejection that cuts deeper than any legal accusation. Phyllis has always operated with the belief that her actions, however questionable, were justified by her love for her family. To see that love questioned, to feel it slipping away, triggers a defensive anger that borders on desperation. Her reaction is not measured. It is volatile, emotional, and increasingly erratic. She begins to see enemies where there may be none, to interpret every action through the lens of betrayal, and in doing so, she risks creating the very isolation she fears. Because the more she pushes back, the more she alienates those who might otherwise stand by her. Christine, for her part, maintains a position of professional integrity, but there is an unmistakable tension beneath her composure. She insists on fairness, on following the evidence wherever it leads. Yet the history between her and Phyllis cannot be erased, and it inevitably colors the dynamic between them. The possibility that personal grievances could influence legal decisions lingers in the background, adding another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Meanwhile, the atmosphere at the GCAC becomes a microcosm of the larger conflict. Patty Williams' arrival disrupts the fragile equilibrium, her presence alone enough to trigger unease and suspicion. Kyle Abbott's reaction is immediate and intense. His protective instincts toward his family override any attempted diplomacy. He sees Patty not as a person, but as a threat, one that must be contained, controlled, or removed. His warning is not subtle. It is a declaration of intent, a line drawn in the sand. And yet, it also reveals his own vulnerability, because his anger is rooted in fear, the fear that his family's stability can be shattered by forces beyond his control. It is a fear that mirrors Jack's own, though it manifests in a different way. Victoria Newman's involvement adds yet another layer of emotional conflict. Her confrontation with Kyle is not just about Patty or the immediate situation. It is about her father, about the complicated legacy of Victor Newman and the moral compromises that have defined his empire. Victoria's loyalty to her father is unwavering, but it is not without internal conflict. She understands, perhaps more than anyone, the cost of that loyalty. Her defense of Victor is passionate, but beneath it lies a quiet acknowledgement of the truth that his actions have not always been justifiable, that his influence has shaped their lives in ways that are both empowering and destructive. This internal struggle manifests in her interactions, in the tension between what she believes and what she feels compelled to defend. As these storylines converge, the sense of impending collision becomes impossible to ignore. Each character is operating within their own sphere of conflict, yet their decisions are interconnected, their actions echoing across the narrative in ways that amplify the tension. Sally's engagement, Jack's dangerous plan, Phyllis's legal battle, Patty's unpredictable presence, and Victoria's moral struggle, all of these threads are weaving together into a tapestry of escalating drama. What makes this moment so compelling is not just the external conflict, but the internal battles that drive it. These characters are not simply reacting to circumstances, they are confronting themselves. Their fears, their desires, their regrets, all of these elements are shaping their choices in ways that feel both inevitable and tragic. There is a sense that everyone is being pushed toward a breaking point, that the delicate balance they have maintained for so long is beginning to collapse, and when that collapse comes, it will not be contained. It will spread, affecting every relationship, every alliance, every carefully constructed facade. In this world, there are no easy resolutions, no clean victories. Every game comes with a cost, every decision with consequences that cannot be undone. And as the tension continues to build, one truth becomes increasingly clear. The greatest threat is not any single character or event, but the accumulation of choices made in anger, in fear, and in desperation. That is the essence of The Young and the Restless at its most powerful. It is not just about what happens, but about why it happens, about the emotional currents that drive people to act against their own best interests, to betray those they love, and to risk everything for a chance at control. And as this story unfolds, it becomes evident that no one will emerge unchanged, and not everyone will emerge intact.